it has a similar issue. Something can happen in a completely other country that can be of an issue for you in the country that you're working in. So
Yeah.
you're exactly right. And again, as you say, and then you take into the association with the Foreign Office, and we might say, well, there's immediate life-saving humanitarian need here, and that's got to be, frankly, put against the fact that the UK government's looking to build long-term strategic partnerships with other countries globally, and dare I say it, sometimes that doesn't necessarily align. That is what it is. So,
I'm just taking some notes to catch up, so
sure.
Bear with me just for a second.
Sure. Keeping in mind, I don't normally get up to that level. I'm sort of still more looking at the getting people into countries, and I'm more the sort of operational level than I am the strategic stuff. But I am aware that thinking is happening. And so, a good example is again the FCDO travel advice. I might go to a place and do an assessment and think this doesn't make. I don't understand why that rating is the way it is, and then you come back and have a conversation with other people, and then you understand why it is the way it is, and it's there's other considerations beyond what it might be immediately apparent.
And I guess it doesn't matter how high up you go in a way in an organization. There's always a layer above that is a different perspective, I guess, in a way. So
yeah.
And I'm interested. I mean, it's sort of coming out in this call more than some others, but the almost like the granularity of risk as well. So at the very, very most local level, it is very almost tactical or transactional. Like, I'm doing this, and here's the risk, and I might get hurt. Whereas,
definitely. I mean, again, I mean, with sort of to not drill into it too much, but essentially, if the FCDO says the official policy of the UK government is that this area, we don't recommend going to this area under any circumstances, because they have a no double standard policy, and that is essentially anything the UK government knows that they're saying to their employees, they will say to their citizens as well. They won't have a different policy for one or the other. So, so if the UK government's saying, and I'm sure you can appreciate that the UK government has access to different types of information, if you understand what I'm getting at. And they're going to look at it and say, this is our information. We're saying this is, don't go under any circumstances. And then the humanitarian arm of the UK government says, well, actually, we've got to go there to do an assessment of, X, Y, Z. There's an inherent contradiction. So there's an entire process, and a very detailed process to go through to make the justification as to why we should go against essentially the FCDO's own travel advice. And again, it's, particularly if you're going into very high risk areas, this is something that gets very heavily scrutinized.
It's interesting. It almost goes to the root of my research question, which is, does security risk management work in the sector? Because it does if you see security risk management as the ability to take more risks in a way.
Yeah.
And you're describing it as kind of, in a way, limiting your ability to take risks. But I guess that's still a decision at the end of the day.
So, yes with an and a no with a but. I mean, informed consent is really important to us. So, the idea that, Sean, you're going to Baghdad. There's, Kabul. I mean, you're probably aware there were a whole bunch of indirect fire fired at the airport in Kabul over the weekend. This is what you're getting yourself into, right? You might not be happy about it, but are you aware that that's what you're getting yourself into? Yes, I am. Okay. Where the negligence starts is where you just conceal it and don't tell someone, and then they arrive and they're like, nobody told me there was a war on, So a lot of what we do is informed consent. Again, it depends on where you're coming from does it work or not? I think at the end of the day, yeah, I think it does. There's all sorts of processes I could point to and say it would be nice to have something different, but then you're back to this point of, well, what's the something different? If I change it there, I've got to change it here. And ultimately I've got the system that I've got. And really at the end of the day, it is about, my primary job is, I know I'm to enable and I've got to be pragmatic about the security that we do. But at the end of the day, my primary concern is the security and safety of the people we're deploying and the assets that we're sending overseas. The assistance to the beneficiaries is the concern of the protection people and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I know we can become the Department of No, and people say that, and all that sort of stuff. But, that's frankly what I get paid for, and Sean, you're probably the same. What we get paid for is the fact that if something goes wrong and we end up in a court of law, they can say, Scott, what's your background and experience to make that decision? And I can say, well, I made that decision or gave that advice based on the number of years I've been in the sector, and there we are.
And you can also say that there was as much as possible informed consent, I guess. And
exactly. Yeah. And nobody's saying like I said, we can go any. Excuse me, we can go anywhere you want to go. If we and my thing is to not say no. Mine is like, well, if you want to do that, you're going to need. And there might be a list as long as your arm, but it's like, I'm giving you everything I think you need to go and do that. If you're still happy to put all that in place, understand the residual risk is going to be this, and if the decision, the risk owner is happy to sign that off, then away we go. So I would tend to argue that it's people see it as it doesn't work because it slows you up, and it's like, well, no, the idea is to enable you to get in and out safely. It's not to stop you doing it. It's to come up with a way that you can do it in a way that you'll actually survive it, which is a bit of a different story.
And I guess it doesn't have to take that much time. Probably in practice it often does, but
it depends. Like I said, it depends where you're going. It depends where depends how bad the security situation is, and it depends how often you're going there. It depends who the decision makers are. We've had different directors that I've worked for. When I first have a new director that I'm working with, it takes a few weeks for me to understand what they're going to be happy with and what questions they're going to ask. So there's a bit of inside knowledge as well.
Just wrapping up the question around talent and capability. Do you think it's difficult in the sector, and you might have to maybe think even more widely than UK government, but is it difficult to compete for the right talent? Is there enough available? Can it be retained, I guess, as well?
It's a very experience based industry, and there's a kind of big difference between somebody who's never worked in humanitarian aid and somebody who has, I think. So I think certainly that kind of hump, you must have probably seen this yourself, Sean, that sort of the hump into the first job, if you know what I mean, can be quite a bit of a stretch, because I think there's a lot of people that just aren't prepared to take on people that haven't already got some experience. I'm thinking broadly here in terms of, it's not just security. We have a thing where we use the same consultants repeatedly. And it puts us in a position where it's like, well, our pool of talent, because we're just using the same number of people, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's in our interest to try and have more people come in, because then we've got more people with the experience, so to speak. So,